days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria. And all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth, to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and the lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn.
And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. Today in the town of David a Saviour has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." Suddenly a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to men on whom his favour rests." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby, who was lying in a manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told to them about this child, and all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told.
Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law and asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem in Judea," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah, for a ruler will come from you, who will be the shepherd for my people Israel." Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, come back and tell me, so that I can go and worship him too." After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod.
So we've heard 3 readings this morning, and I'm sure for a lot of you this is really familiar. It's readings we hear every Christmas, and we know the story well. And I wanted to just reflect on those 3 readings this morning and how we can take from that how it relates to us where we're at right now in 2020, coming upon 2021. So in the first reading that Andy read, we see that there's a census. There's a massive shake-up across the land. It's chaotic, people are trying to move around, trying to figure out how they're going to travel. And within it though, Mary and Joseph have a personal struggle. They're expecting a baby. Expecting a baby in the first place is a really big deal. But then having to travel amongst everything else is going to be so much more work for them. And I wonder whether there was disappointment there. I don't know, I haven't had a baby, but if you've had a baby, I'm sure you plan when the baby's going to be coming, where you're going to have the baby, the hospital you're going to. Maybe Mary and Joseph had hoped that they'd have the baby at home. I don't think they were hoping to have a baby in a stable and have a trough to put the baby in. I don't think that was what they were expecting or envisioning of the birth. And we don't see in the story, it doesn't tell us, what emotions exactly they were feeling, but maybe there was disappointment, maybe there was fear, there would have been physical and mental exhaustion from just travelling while heavily pregnant. But I'm just guessing these are some emotions that we might have found them experiencing. And their plans had to change. And I don't know about you, but our plans have changed many, many times this year. But in it all, a baby was still born. Hope still came through. Amongst all the chaos of moving across the land to a different place, hope still came. So then we move on to the next reading in Luke 2:8-20. Here we have an unassuming group of shepherds. They're not really very liked people, they're rejected, but they have an amazing encounter. And they're terrified, it says. They literally were terrified, but they accept the invitation. I can imagine there was a lot of confusion, and like it says, terrified, but they were fearful. What were they going to do? Were they going to respond, or were they just going to stay where they were? But I love that it says, they say, let's go to Jerusalem, to Bethlehem, sorry. Let's go to Bethlehem and see. They choose to go and see. They went and met Jesus. Even though they were fearful, they experienced meeting Jesus. They rejoiced, and then they spread the word further. Maybe coming close to God can terrify us at sometimes. We can think, I'm not sure I want God to see all of this raw emotion. I want God to let God into that hurt and pain. But when you say yes and say, let's just go and see, then there is hope there again. Hope comes through, and there's light and love to come through. So then we go on to our next reading in Matthew 2, where we meet a completely different group of people to the shepherds. The Magi, they're a respected group of people, but then we also meet the bad guy, Herod. But he has bad intentions. He tries to make out he has good intentions, but he doesn't. And the Magi innocently tell him where Jesus is going to be. So here we have a whole lot more mess and more obstacles in the story of the birth of Jesus. There's a whole lot going on. But again, in all of this mess and obstacles, here comes hope. The Magi meet Jesus, they worship and they bow down to him. They are overjoyed. God warns them not to return to Herod, so God protects them in that moment. In the threat, but he still gives them amazing joy, and they get to meet Jesus despite all of these crazy obstacles and threats that are going on. So as I was reading all of these stories, something that I've read many times before, I just thought it was amazing that in this story of Jesus' birth, that's the heart of it, isn't it? We all hear about Jesus, but there's chaos, there's fear, there's disappointment, there's real and perceived threat. There's just so many emotions going on. And right now, I think all of us are and have been experiencing so many emotions. I know that I have. Just in the space of a week, you can feel overjoyed, and then you feel disappointed, then you have a good cry, and then you feel angry, and then you feel happy again. And it's just a whirlwind, isn't it? And we see that in this story of Jesus' birth. There are so many changes to our life, to our plans this year. Our hopes of maybe seeing family over Christmas, or hope to see them in a certain way that we can't now. But just like the story of Jesus, God meets us in it all. He meets us in our pain, in our grief, in our fear and our loss. He doesn't tell us, oh, Becky, stop being so silly. Just get over it, get a grip. He meets me and meets you where you're at. Jesus wasn't born once everything was sorted out, once everything was calm. He wasn't born once they were back home and it was all safe. He was born amongst all the chaos and everything else that was going on. And that's what Christmas is about, isn't it? God with us. We just heard it in that song, Emmanuel. God is with us. God is with us in all of it. And it's just a really brief thought this morning I wanted to share with you. Wherever you're at, God can meet you there. We have a song now that's it's a really beautiful song. It was created by a choir in lockdown, and it's all about God meeting us exactly where we are. We don't need to be perfect, we don't need to be all sorted, we don't have to have all our emotions in line, but because Jesus' hope can come in it. Jesus' hope was born into that time. And he isn't scared of our mess. Like the shepherds, they were terrified, but they still went to see Jesus. So don't be scared to come before Jesus. However you're feeling, you might be feeling really great today, and that's good, but you also might be feeling disappointed or hurt or just in pain, I don't know, but God can meet you where you're at. You don't need to have it all sorted. And that's the amazing truth we have in Jesus, that he meets us here. His hope comes through in the pain, in everything. He is with us. So I just want you to take some time to pray, come before Jesus now as we listen to this song. Listen to those words, and it's really a moving, beautiful song. I hope it ministers to you this morning.
Oh, come, all you unfaithful, come, weak and unstable.